and welcome. We are about to have a very important discussion regarding consumer behavior in South Africa. We are talking MAPS, the Marketing or Product Survey that is conducted by the MRF in partnership with Plus 94 Research. Gentlemen, welcome. Johan, let's start with you. Can you just tell us just a brief background about MAPS?
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. Yeah, so MAPS is a product of the, as you said, the Marketing Research Foundation. And the Marketing Research Foundation is an industry body. It's a body mandated by marketers and advertising agencies to deliver independent, robust consumer research. And so MAPS was designed to be a kind of benchmark, gold standard piece of research about consumer behavior, and it's conducted. We've been conducting that since 2020. So it's 5 years worth of tracking consumer behavior in South Africa across a multitude of products and services, media consumption, brands, and behavioral aspects of how consumers are behaving in the market.
Dr. Falala, Johan mentioned that it's robust. How does Plus 94 ensure that indeed it is robust?
Yes, through a combination of traditional research methods, which means that face-to-face interviews, because as we know, our population is scattered all over the place in urban and rural areas where we do research. We do not exclude informal communities or certain pockets of the population. We include everybody so that the MAPS sample is representative. That's the key word. It needs to represent everyone in South Africa from the age group of 15 years and upwards. So we use a stratified probability sample. We have a big team that is behind that, including professors that help us to test the efficacy of the sample, as well as the data that can be expected to come out of it.
And with such data, Johan, how does it really benefit businesses? It might seem obvious, but can you tell the viewer how this benefits businesses, brands, the subscribers that you have, and even subscribers that have not even heard about MAPS?
So yeah, I think the most important aspect of MAPS is it's a strategic tool for business, right? It helps businesses make better decisions in a very uncertain environment. It helps businesses better understand consumer behavior. It also helps them understand how their own product is featuring in consumer choices and consumer behavior. But more importantly, it also helps them understand how their competitors are faring in the minds of the consumer. So the MAPS questionnaire has all that, a whole range of products and brands categories that is covered. But over and above that, it also has media questions, intermedia consumption questions. So from a strategic point of view, as a marketer, you can get a thorough understanding of your consumer base, your segments, or the target market you're looking to target. But at the same time, you can then develop a strategic plan in how to communicate and reach those audiences. What media to use, be it TV, radio, online, digital, social, streaming services such as YouTube, all of those things are measured in MAPS. So it gives you kind of a 360 view of the consumer and the ability to plan how you want to engage with those consumers.
We've seen in the market that there are other organizations, other agencies, other surveys that are available. What makes MAPS unique? Why should somebody go for MAPS? What is Plus 94 doing to ensure that MAPS is worth trusting?
Well, we have testimonies from users of MAPS, including some of the major chains in the retail business space that have affirmed that MAPS is in fact representative and is a close approximation of the market scenario. What we do is that we realize where we are now with the advent of technology, there are too many optimizations or shortcuts. People are using shortcuts to try and get to the knowledge of how consumers are behaving and how they consume products and how they buy brands. We do not believe in shortcuts. It is an expensive way of doing things, but it is the most reliable way. So the brief that we've received both from the research committee, from the MRF, and also from our board is that we have to ensure at all times that corners are not cut, that MAPS is comprehensive and conducted thoroughly. The rest we leave to the market to make judgments. You, at the end of the day, have a split between those types of clients who want cheap data, who want data that is collected in such a way that it doesn't have to be accurate. But we don't believe in that, and that's why we are here to speak on behalf of MAPS.
Dr. Falala mentions that it's not a cheap exercise. How do you do it? How do you manage? Where do you get the funding?
So I think first and foremost to the point that, the MAPS is about integrity and robustness, right? It needs to be accurate. And when we say accurate, we don't mean, desktop research accurate. We mean scientifically, statistically accurate, using methodologies that are found to be robust and provides us with the right kind of numbers that we can stand by. So that in itself then gives us benchmarks, and there are certain requirements that we need to meet. And those benchmarks and the requirements and the criteria are all subjected to a lot of rigor, including international audits, which, from independent international auditors, which then look at the different aspects and the value chain within MAPS to ensure that there's rigor behind this data and that it's independent and accurate and a true representation, or as true a representation as possible, of the South African consumer. As you've rightly pointed out, it is an expensive exercise. But our mandate as the MRF is to provide this kind of data, right? And we're an industry body, so we do this on a non-profit basis. The model that we use at the moment to fund MAPS is through subscriptions. So brands or companies can subscribe to the data. They then have access to the data. They can authorize their agencies or third parties to have access to the data and use the data on their behalf for strategic purposes and planning purposes. But that subscription model, we apply the subscriptions from that to cover the costs of MAPS. There's no profits that are made from this. It's purely an exercise in providing marketers and advertising agencies, firstly, with the insights and strategic information they need. But MAPS is now becoming much more than that. It's becoming a bigger and a broader strategic tool that companies are using, that are being used across companies. Various divisions within companies are now starting to use MAPS, we find. So, it's at the end of the day, that value that it's bringing is helping subscribers in terms of kind of justifying the cost and investing in this kind of independent consumer research.
Apart from it benefiting the subscribers, wouldn't you say that it plays a role in ensuring that South Africa has data of its own instead of us constantly depending on international data or data that we cannot trust? How important is MAPS in, giving South Africa and South Africans research that they can depend on, that they can base decisions on?
It's very important. I think so. MAPS is the only consumer data set out there that has these design principles built into it as a stratified representative sample. It's continuous research, so it's research done throughout the year. So it takes into account aspects such as seasonality and the changes in behavior of consumers over time. So it plays a vital role as a record in time of how consumers in South Africa are behaving. But it's also giving us a very important kind of tracking tool, because we've been doing this actively now since 2020. So you're able to, kind of track behavior over time. Quarter by quarter, you can start comparing how the products are behaving or changing or performing versus other periods, and how consumers are influenced by seasonality and other aspects such as political events, sporting events, things like that. It's I think it's a very important record for commercial decision making in South Africa.
This suggests to me that we should be collaborating. Research bodies, different agencies in South Africa should be collaborating to stand behind MAPS. What is your take on that?
We are actually members of the Pan-African Media Research Organization, which is a media research organization that looks at the entire continent so that we can compare our methodology with others on the continent. We are also members of ESOMA, which is the European Society for Market and Opinion Research, which allows us also to have direct access to the best benchmarks around the world. Not that we need to copy those benchmarks, but we need to compare ourselves. Our situation is unique, our markets are different, and there are certain nuances that we can learn from them. But also within Southern Africa, we're a member of SAMRA, which is the South African Market Research Association. And again, there is a code of conduct. And oftentimes you find that with data that is continuously being purveyed around the markets now, some of it doesn't stand up to scrutiny, doesn't abide by the rules of market research. We believe strongly in having modernity in our data, but also in abiding by the traditions upon which scientific market research is based. Such as, for instance, the history that we have that MAPS is a direct offshoot of AMS, which has been there or had been there until 2015 for many years. And because of that, we were able to spread the gospel of AMS across the entire continent and parts of Eastern Europe. And it is for that reason that we were able to develop segmentation tools, such as the LSMs, which we continue to work on and continue to try and refine. So MAPS is very important, but the rigor behind it, apart from the convenience of opportunistic business people that seek to make money out of selling information, MAPS is there to try and approximate the reality of market scenarios.
And somebody might be watching and say, you guys go out and you visit 20,000 households on an annual basis. How do you pick those households? How do I know that they're indeed representative of South Africa?
Yes, that's a nice question, because this is where the scientific design kicks in. We use the population enumerator area points. As you know, the country has different EAs, and they number something in the order of 104,000 in total. And nationally, we draw a probability sample from those, stratifying them in relation to population size and population density. And that stratification covers provinces, so that each province is included in the sample in accordance with its relative population size. But within that also different types of neighborhoods, smaller towns, bigger towns, urban and rural areas, so that we ensure that we have coverage of every possible consumer type. So once we arrive at the chosen EA, which is chosen at random within the specified province or town or metro area, we then ensure that we select a starting household at random. And that is at this point done using GIS mapping. We select an actual household. We do not select, for instance, using a rigid mechanical walk procedure where we walk and look at the safest house to choose, but we have a house that's actually chosen at random for us. And from there, we actually conduct an interval scale based on density of the population to count the number of households in between the ones that we interview. So it's a fairly standardized process that is replicable across all the provinces and all the different types of neighborhoods. And these are the principles that we use to try and argue that our data is accurate. One can never say with certainty that the data is accurate, but what needs to be supported are the systems and the procedures and the rules in place to guarantee the users of that data that is being collected in the most dignified way.
That sounds like something that everybody who loves research, everybody who loves South Africa should be supporting. When you look at AMS that gave us the LSMs and how it went extinct, what risks do you see right now that MAPS might be facing if people do not collaborate?
So I think the biggest risk for maps is, or research such as maps, is possibly, the lack of understanding of the importance of this kind of research. For failure of a better term, there is simply so much happening out there in terms of AI and desktop research, and those who use this data to come to conclusions do not always understand what statistically correct or scientific data means. So they are basing decisions sometimes on assumptions that are drawn from incorrect data or data that is not fit for purpose. Maps, for instance, because of the rigor that goes into maps and because of how the sample is drawn and how the interviews are conducted, it's a data set, and as far as I know, it's the only one in South Africa that you can use for market sizing. It's the only one that tells you exactly what the size of the population is within a specific segment, within a specific product category, within a specific spend profile. And as a result, we have a number of research companies who are very professional in their field, many of them multinationals, who actually use maps for that purpose. They use maps as a base to draw samples from, or once they have done their bespoke research, to reweight that data back to the population so that they can provide their clients with proper scientific findings from their research. So understanding those processes, and it's a bit technical in the mechanics of research and the mechanics of data, but there is data that's fit for purpose for what you're trying to do. There's a very big difference between a social study and a piece of research that is done to understand the nuance within a particular market versus something like maps, which is there to give you an establishment survey, a market sizing, and a solid base into which you can actually integrate and fuse other data sets.
For Plus 94 to conduct a survey that other research companies use, what makes Plus 94 so special? How do you do it?
I think it's just following the rules because, as I mentioned, we are part of an industry body. And that industry body is bound ethically to ensure that everyone behaves the same way when it comes to the basic tenets and the basic elements. Maybe if I can address the question you raised about the risks that maps faces, one of the biggest risks is when the market changes due to technology. For instance, if we go back to around after 2010, between 2011 and 2015, we found that consumers were becoming more digital. And in other words, they were using a lot of their they were doing a lot of their consumption on their mobile phones. For example, that had an impact on, for instance, circulation figures and readership figures, and even where consumers were consuming media. And some consumers, unfortunately, of this type of data might prefer to see the data that suits their marketing narrative. And with technology spreading, there could be technologies that are geared to show them where they look good. And regardless of whether that is an accurate depiction of the data or not. So with the advent of artificial intelligence, where consumers on a daily basis, they are now consuming products they themselves are custom making. Music, for example. You don't necessarily have to listen to music created by another person. The AI can create music that suits your taste better. That has an impact on on artists, on record companies that sell. And they might then start to find the maps data to be unsuitable for what they're looking for. And yet at the same time, they might find other outlets which are based on the same format of technology as being convenient. So what makes us in a way relevant, I'd say that is that we work with other research companies that use our data. And we also likewise use their data either for core client studies or for similar studies to maps. So we really need to bed down and ensure that we accept the impact of technology, but do not use it to deflect attention from markets that are becoming smaller and away from markets that are actually growing. And I think the appetite or the temptation to actually try and sidestep the impact of market changes, which are happening rapidly at the moment, could be a major risk. And that's something that as an industry we will be looking at dealing with.
Thank you. To somebody who's interested, who's considering, should I subscribe, should I not subscribe, where can they find your data, your information, something that can give them the last push to say, yes, I'll subscribe?
Well, they're always welcome to contact us at our via email, mrf@mrfsa.co.za. There's a wealth of information, especially information on previous data releases, webinars we've done, things like that on our website, which is mrfsa.org.za. So they're welcome to go there. There's a contact form there that you can fill in and we'll reach out to you. The best way to approach MAPS and to get an understanding if it fits your needs and if it's a product that you would want to use is really to have a conversation with us. We like introducing potential users to MAPS. We've got a nice presentation that we go through, but it's more conversation than it's a sales pitch, because we are an industry body. This is not for profit. We try and make sure that those who take up MAPS understand its purpose, understand how it will fit their needs and the value it will bring to their business.
Dr. Falala, any last words?
I think it's just that consumers are changing. The market is becoming very interesting. We see with the Gen Alpha, Gen Z, there is a lot of data in MAPS, for instance, about disposable incomes and as well as discretionary incomes. It's very important to understand that our market is not just one segment, but it's a variety of segments. And MAPS has the ability, because of the size of the sample of over 20,000 respondents in a year, over 100,000 over the past 5 years, to actually bed down and have a better understanding of what the market looks like. And as Johan said, that they are a not-for-profit organization. They are there, they exist in the interests of great research, great marketing, and great business overall.
Last words, Johan?
No, I think as Dr. Falala has pointed out, I think what we're trying to achieve as the MRF, but in partnership with Plus 94 Research, is really to carry an industry mandate. Right? It's about enabling business growth in South Africa, first of all, and that's what this data is about. It's about enabling businesses to make the right decisions given intelligence and the insights that's available in MAPS. And I think that is what's driving us, is to allow this kind of growth and the opportunity for growth in South Africa. And as an industry, I think it's our responsibility to do that. So I think it's a very important strategic tool that I hope we can continue delivering for many, many years to come.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. MAPS is all about the consumer, the South African consumer. If you as a business or a brand want to understand your consumer better, be sure to subscribe to MAPS, Marketing or Product Survey. Thank you.